Hare
Krishna Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Gauravattarinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gauravattarinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gauravattarinda. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikunda Stute Tapta Kanchan Gorangi Radhi Vindhi Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. तो फिर आदि गोलोकानंद की श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I think we have Sachin traveling this week, I guess. And then Anilji Shukla, he was in India actually. Right, some time. So I think when he also moved to Boston. I think when he comes back and join. So, all right. I think we'll get started. So, कल हम लोगों ने chapter 27 पूरा किया, and then what happens is King Puranjan, right? And as we read about Kalkanya, Chandved, right? And Prajwar, so all those together, and the Gandhars, remember 360 days and nights represented by them, all attacked King Puranjan and the city, yeah? And then what happens is King Puranjan gets weakened and he is about to give away his body. So that's what we are reading right now. We started Shlok 28 about King Puranjan, yeah? So Ajay.
तामेव मनसा गृहण बभूव प्रमोदतमा अनन्तरं विदर्भस्य राजसिंहस्य वेश्मनि. King Puranjan gave up his body while remembering his wife, and consequently in his next life he became a very beautiful and well-situated woman. He took his next birth as daughter of King Vidharbh in the very house of the king. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. No? So Narad Muni, of course, is telling this story of King Puranjan to King Prachin Bahishwar. And so what happens to King Puranjan is that, in the next life, he becomes a woman. Yeah. And then we'll continue to read, but he becomes a daughter of the king, Vidharbh. And then we'll see what happens. Like, very nice purport, actually. So we should read this. I think Tarun doesn't have his glasses. So, Ajay, why don't you read?
Okay. Since King Puranjan thought of his wife at the time of death, he attained the body of a woman in his next birth. This verifies the following verse in Bhagavad Gita. Yam yan vapi smaran bhavam tyajate ante kalevaram tam ivati kaunteya sada tadbhav bhavita. Whatever stage of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. When a living entity is accustomed to think of a particular subject matter or become absorbed in certain type of thought, he will think of that subject at the time of death. At the time of death, one will think of the subject that has occupied his life while he was awake, lightly sleeping or dreaming, or while he was deeply sleeping. After falling from the association of the Supreme Lord, the living entity thus transmigrates from one bodily form to another according to nature's course until he finally attains the human form. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So if he is absorbed in material thoughts and ignorant of spiritual life, and if he does not take shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who solves all questions of birth and death, he will become a woman in the next life, especially if he thinks of his wife. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Karmana Deva Netrena, a living entity acts piously and impiously, and sometimes in both ways. All actions are taken into account, and the living entity is offered a new body by his superiors. Although King Puranjan was overly attached to his wife, he nonetheless performed many pious fruitive activities. Consequently, although he took the form of a woman, he was given a chance to be the daughter of a powerful king, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Prapaya punya kritam lokam ustiva sashvata samaha suchinam srimatam gehe yoga bhrasto vijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Yeah. So all these karmas, how somebody gets the next birth. So what one remembers at the time of death, and of course, the whole collection of the karmas from life to life is what determines where he is born and how is he born, right? So let's continue reading, Ajay.
I can read.
Oh, okay, Tarun. Go ahead. Yeah.
I got my glasses now.
Oh,
If
good.
a person falls from the path of bhakti yoga, God realization, due to attachment to fruitive activity, philosophical speculation, or mystic yoga, he is given a chance to take birth in a high and rich family. The higher authorities appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus render justice to the living entity according to the living entity's desires. Although King Puranjana was overly absorbed in thoughts of his wife and thus became a woman, he took birth in the family of a king due to his previous pious activities. The conclusion is that all our activities are taken into consideration before we are awarded another body. Narad Muni therefore advised Vyasadeva that one should take to Krishna consciousness, devotional service, and abandon all ordinary occupational duties. This advice is also given by Lord Krishna himself. Although a devotee may fall from the path of spiritual consciousness, he will nonetheless attain a human body in the home of a devotee or a rich man. In this way, one can resume his devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So I think the important part which is mentioned is if somebody is a devotee, right, and it's not easy to carry on the devotional service, but as much as can be done, right, and even if he falls from the spiritual consciousness, then in the next birth, based on the karmas, he'll still attain a human body in the home of a devotee. So then he can continue his devotional service, right? We see a lot of people, like you will see like a 5-year child is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, right? In India, you'll hear so many stories. Like an 8-year-old kid is reciting a whole Bhagavatam. Or we see like, 5-year-old kid doing a great kirtan. Like all those things are not just this life, right? Those things have been continuing probably from the past lives. Yeah. So nicely mentioned. Ajay?
Sure. उपये उपये में वीर प्रणाम वैदर्भी मलय ध्वजः युधि निर्जित्य राजन्यान पांड्य पर पुरंजय. It was fixed that Vaidarbhi, daughter of King Vidharbh, was to be married to a very powerful man, Malay Dhwaj, an inhabitant of Pandu country. After conquering other princes, he married the daughter of King Vidharbh. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So the King Puranjan became a Vidharbhi, right? Which is daughter of King Vidharbh. And then she was married to Malay Dhwaj. was the king of another country. Yeah. So that's the story of Puranjan. Continuing. Tarun?
Tasya sa janya chakra atma jama sithe shananam aviyasam sapta sutanam sapta dvarida bhubrutah. King Malaya Yadvaja fathered one daughter who had very black eyes. He also had 7 sons who later became rulers of that tract of land known as Dravida. Thus there were 7 kings in that land. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Actually, it's interesting fact here mentioned, right? The specific mention of the Dravid, right? Dravid Desh, that refers to the 5 Dravid Desas in South India. All are very strong in rendering the preliminary devotional processes, Sarvanam Kirtanam. Some great acharyas like Ramanujacharya and Madhavacharya also came from Dravid Desh and became great preachers. They were all situated on the platform of Sakyam Atmanivedana. Ekekasya bhaktesham rajan budam bhurtamam bhakshate yata dasham dharer mahi manvantaram param. My dear King Prachin Mahishar, the sons of Malyadhwaj gave birth to many thousands and thousands of sons. And all of these have been protecting the entire world up to the end of one Manu's life span and even afterwards. Okay. So the sons of Malyadhwaj, right, had thousands and thousands of sons, and they've been protecting the entire world up to one Manu's life span. So what is one Manu's life span, right? And if we read this, what it says, there are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma. Yeah, if you remember, well, how long is one day of Lord Brahma?
360 billion years.
No, the one day of Lord Brahma is 4,032,000,000 years, right?
4 billion.
Yeah. 350 trillion years is the age of Lord Brahma. That's
Okay.
350 trillion. Right? But one day of Lord Brahma is 4,032,000,000. Now, in that one day of Lord Brahma, there are 14 Manus born just in one day. Yeah. And then it's a Manantra, which is actually known as the lifespan of one Manu, is given as 71 multiplied by 4.3 million years. Yeah. And why is that? 71 multiplied by 4.3 million years. Do you remember? What is 4.3 million years? Yeah. So one cycle of all the yugas. Yeah. So for example, Kali Yuga, how big is Kali Yuga?
1,000 years.
Kali Yuga is 432,000 years.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. 432,000 years.
Oh.
Before that, we have Dwapar Yuga. Right? And Dwapar Yuga is 864,000 years. Like you just double 432,000. Dwapar Yuga is 864,000. Then Treta Yuga, right? You add 432,000 to each of those. That's the length, duration of the previous Yuga. So Kali Yuga 432, Dwapar Yuga 864, then Treta Yuga is 1.2 million something, and then Satyuga is 1.678 million, something like that. And then there is some time period for the Pralaya in between. And when you total up everything, it comes to 4,032,4.3 million years. Yeah. That whole yugas is one yug. It's called one yug. And like that, there are 71 yug cycles in one Manu's time period. Make sense? So one Manu's time period, there are 71 yug cycles. Each yug cycle is 4.3 million years. Yeah, 4.32 million years. So one Manu's age is 4.32 million times 71. And then there is some, again, pralay after that, right? And then, like this, there are 14 Manus in Lord Brahma's one day. So if you multiply 14 Manus and times all this, everything, all the calculations is perfect. So we have all these quantitative numbers, as you can see. Yeah. But what is being mentioned here is, right, that after one such Manu passes on, another Manu begins his life span. In this way, the life cycle of the universe is going on. Yeah. And as one Manu follows another, the Krishna consciousness continues, right? Because the Krishna consciousness, of course, comes from the original thing. So, all right. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Sachin.
Hare Krishna. Raj Hare Krishna everybody.
Sudeep?
Agastya Pragdu Hitaramupa Yeme Drutvat Urattama Vratam Yasyam Dudachyuto Jata Idma Vahamatmajo Muni. The great sage named Agastya married the firstborn daughter Malaya Dhwaja, the avowed devotee of Lord Krishna. From her one son was born, whose name was Dudachyuta, and from him another son was born, whose name was Idma Vaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Tarun?
विभज्य तनयेभ्यः शम राज श्रीमलयध्वजः अरिर्यध्य सुह कृष्णं स जगम कुलचलम्. After this, the great saintly king Malayadhwaja divided his entire kingdom among his sons. Then, in order to worship Lord Krishna with full attention, he went to a solitary place known as Kulachala.
Hare Krishna. Yes, so King Malyadhwaj, and who is his wife? Who is the wife of King Malyadhwaj? Right? Like as we read in the previous shlok, King Puranjan, in the next slide, yeah, he was born in King Vidharbh's, as a King Vidharbh's daughter, yeah, known as Vidharbhi, and she got married to King Malyadhwaj, yeah. So because we are still reading the story of Puranjan, King Puranjan, right? And she is right now the wife of King Malyadhwaj. So, but Malyadhwaj, being a devotee, right, after he divided his entire kingdom among the sons, and then he went to worship Lord Krishna in a solitary place. Ajay?
Yeah. Hitva grihan sutan bhogan Vidharbhi madrekshana anvadhavat pandayesham jyotsnev rajnikaram. Just as the moonshine follows the moon at night, immediately after King Malayadhwaj departed for Kulachala, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness despite family and children. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah. So in those yugas, the king will give everything, and for the spiritual advancement, they will go to the ekanta jagah and do tapasya. Yeah. And Sachin?
तत्र चंद्रवसा नाम ताम्रपर्णी वटोदका तत्पुण्यस सलिले नित्यम नित्यम भयत्रात्मनो मृजन कंदाष्टि भीर्मूल फलेह पुष्पपणैस्तृणोतैकः दकैः वर्तमानः bless you शनैर्गात्र कर्षणं तप आस्थितः. In the province of Kulachala, there were rivers named Chandravasa, Tamraparni, and Vatodaka. King Malaya Dwaja used to go to those pious rivers regularly and take his bath there. Thus he purified himself externally and internally. He took his baths and ate bulbs, seeds, leaves, flowers, roots, fruits, and grasses, and drank water. In this way, he underwent severe austerity. Eventually, he became very skinny. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so those days when they used to do tapasya, along with the bhakti, they only used to eat like starting with the seeds and then leaves and like that. Yeah. शीतोष्णवातु वर्षाणि कृतपिपासे प्रिया प्रिये सुख दुखे इति द्वंद्व न्यजयत समदर्शनः. Through austerity, King Maladhwaj in body and mind gradually became equal to the dualities of cold and heat, happiness and distress, wind and rain, hunger and thirst, the pleasant and the unpleasant. In this way, he conquered all relativities. Yeah. So everything like sukh dukhe iti, everything became equal for him.
So they don't have to do the treadmill.
Yeah. But then you have to eat leaves. Right? See, once you are in like this kind of place, then to even get the leaves and the seeds, you are doing so much walking. A treadmill is then not required. Right? And then you are not doing all this tensed job of IT implementations and all those things. Creative activities. Plus, actually, those days, right, they used to do yoga. And those yogas used to be so effective through pranayama and yoga, right? Tarun?
Tasya videya pakva kasayo niyarmaryame yuje brahmanyatmanam vijita shali lashayah. By worshipping, executing austerities, and following the regulative principles, King Malayadvaja conquered his senses, his life, and his consciousness. Thus he fixed everything on the central point of the Supreme Brahman, Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Aste स्थाणु रिवैकत्र दिव्यं वर्षशतं स्थिरः वासुदेवे भगवति नान्यं द्वैदोद्वहन् रतिम्. In this way, he stayed immovable in one place for 100 years by the calculation of the demigods. After this time, he developed pure devotional attraction for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and remained fixed in that position. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so he even stayed immovable. Who can stay like that, right? In one place for 100 years, and 100 years is not the solar years, 100 years of the demigods here, right? All the devatas, 100 years. And really nice purport we should read. Let's read this. Yeah, Ajay.
Sure. Bahunam Janmananam ante Jnanavanam Jnavanam Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvan iti Samahatma Sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna is everything, and one who knows this is the greatest of all transcendentalists. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that one realizes this after many, many births. This is also confirmed in this verse with the words Divyam Vers Satam, 100 years according to the calculation of demigods. According to the calculation of the demigods, 1 day, 12 hours is equal to 6 months on earth. 100 years of the demigods would equal 36,000 earth years. Thus, Malay Dhwaj executed austerities and penances for 36,000 years. After this time, he became fixed in devotional service of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So a lot of things are mentioned here. Firstly, of course, we have read this shlok in Bhagavad Gita, right? 7.19. Like Bahunam Janmanam Ante, like after many births and deaths. We don't know how many births we have been through, right? Births and deaths. And then one who actually gains the knowledge. And what is the knowledge, right? Jnanavan Mam Prapayadate. The knowledge is that you need to surrender to Lord Krishna. That's the knowledge. Yeah. So one who actually in knowledge actually then surrenders unto me is Lord Krishna, right? Because then he understands that he is the cause of all causes. And yeah, and of course, then the knowledge is that Krishna is everything. That's the knowledge, greatest of all transcendentalists. So, and then what is mentioned is the Devatas, I think this is another calculation we may want to remember, is 1 day of Devatas is equal to 6 months on earth. 1 day of Lord Brahma is 4,032,000,000 years on earth, right? 1 day of Devatas is 6 months on earth. Yeah. So that's the calculation. So 100 years of the Devatas will be 36,000 years on earth. Yeah. And that is the number of years the Malyadhwaj, King Malyadhwaj executed austerities and penances and tapasya, right? And then he fixed his mind in devotional service of the Lord. Yeah. Tarun?
To live on earth for so many years, one has to take birth many times. This confirms the conclusion of Krishna. To come to the conclusion of Krishna consciousness and remain fixed in the realization Krishna is everything, as well as render service unto Krishna, are characteristics of the perfectional stage. As said in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Amrita, Krishna Bhakti Kela Sarva Karma Krata Haya. When one comes to the conclusion that Krishna is everything, by worshipping or by rendering devotional service unto Krishna, one actually becomes perfect in all respects. Not only must one come to the conclusion that Krishna is everything, but he must remain fixed in this realization. This is the highest perfection of life. And it is this perfection that King Malayadhwajwa attained at the end. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So again, like mentioned, highest perfection of life is really to have this conclusion, Krishna is everything, and then do the activities based on that. Yeah. Savyapakte atmanam yatiriktate atmani vidwan swapna iva marsha sakshinam viraram hai. So King Malyadhwaj attained perfect knowledge by being able to distinguish the super soul from the individual soul. The individual soul is localized whereas the super soul is all pervasive. He became perfect in knowledge that the material body is not the soul, but that the soul is the witness of the material body. Yeah. So, number one is the super soul, the Paramatma. Yeah. He is able to distinguish the Paramatma from the Atma. Yeah. Every one of us have an Atma, and then we also have Paramatma. Atma is, of course, localized, which is ours, and then Paramatma is all pervasive, right? So that's the real knowledge, and actually it's a nice slope from here, Sachin.
As Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Kshetrajnam chapi mama vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra nayor jnanam yata taja jnanam matam mama. Us kind of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body, its owner is called knowledge. And its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. The body is taken to be the field, and the individual soul is taken to be the worker in that field. Yet there is another who is known as the super soul, who, along with the individual soul, simply witnesses. The individual soul works and enjoys the fruits of the body, whereas the super soul simply witnesses the activities of the individual soul, but does not enjoy the fruits of those activities. The super soul is present in every field of activity, whereas the individual soul is present in his one localized body. King Malaya Dhwaja attained his perfection of knowledge and was able to distinguish between the soul and the super soul, and the soul and the material body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Ajay?
साक्षाद् गुरुणा हरिणा नृप विशुद्ध ज्ञान दीपेन स्फुरता विश्वतोमुखम. In this way, King Malayadhwaj attained perfect knowledge because in his pure state he was directly instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By means of such enlightening transcendental knowledge, he could understand everything from all angles, all angles of vision. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Arun?
Pare Brahmani Chantamanam Param Brahma Tadatmi Vikshmano Vihayeshama Sma Dupararam Ha. King Malayadhwaja could thus observe that the super soul was sitting by his side, and that he, as an individual soul, was sitting by the side of the super soul. Since both were together, there was no need for separate interests. Thus he ceased from such activities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Ajay?
पतिम परम धर्मज्ञम वैदर्भी मलयध्वजम प्रेम्णा पर्यचरित्वा भोगान सा पतिदेवता. The daughter of King Vidharbh accepted her husband all in all as supreme. She gave up all sensual enjoyment and in complete renunciation followed by the principles of her husband, who was so advanced. Thus she remained engaged in his service. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, and if you remember,
Hare
daughter of King Vidharbh is the King Puranjan in the previous life, right? Chirvasa Vritakshama Veni Bhuta Shiroruha Babau Patim Shanta Shika Shantamivanlam. The daughter of King Vidharbh wore old garments and she was lean and thin because of her woes of austerity. Since she did not arrange her hair, it became entangled and twisted in locks. Although she remained always near her husband, she was as silent and unagitated as the flame of an undisturbed fire. Yeah. Ajay?
अजानति प्रियतम यदु परतमंगना सुस्थिरासना मासाद्य यथा पूर्वमुपाचरत. The daughter of King Vidharbh continues as usual to serve her husband, who was seated in a steady posture until she could ascertain that he had passed away from the body. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So it's like King Vidharbh, after doing all this tapasya and attending to Lord Krishna, yeah, passes the body. Yeah, this is the body. Still one more. Sachin.
Yada nopala betangra pushmanam patyur chati asit swing, excuse me, asit swang vigna hridaya yutha bhashta mrugi yatha. While she was serving her husband by massaging his legs, she could feel that his feet were no longer warm and could thus understand that he had already passed from the body. She felt great anxiety upon being left alone. Bereft of her husband's company, she felt exactly as the deer feels upon being separated from his mate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So I think we're going to pause here. And like this, Narad Muni continues to tell the story of King Puranjan to Prachin Bahishwar. I think there are a few more shloks we are going to read tomorrow. Yeah. And this chapter will be then complete. Okay, so, about bhakti, I was thinking about, I was looking at like there's a YouTube video on Swami Prabhupada. So there are some clips of Swami Prabhupada from 1967 to 1971. Yeah. So I just selected like 5 minutes of that. So we are going to see that for 5 minutes today. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
This transcendental vibration by chanting of Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the sublime method for reviving our Krishna consciousness. As living spiritual souls, we are all originally Krishna conscious entities, but due to our association with matter from time immemorial, our consciousness is now polluted by material atmosphere. In this polluted concept of life, we are all trying to exploit the resources of material nature, but actually we are becoming more and more entangled in our complexities. This illusion is called Maya, or hard struggle for existence, for winning over the stringent laws of material nature. This illusory struggle against material nature can at once be stopped by revival of our Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This consciousness is the original energy of living entity. When we hear the transcendental vibration, this consciousness is revived, and the process is recommended by authorities for this age. By practical experience also, we can perceive that by chanting this Maha Mantra, or the great chanting for deliverance, one can at once feel transcendental ecstasy from the spiritual strata. When one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of sense, mind and intelligence, one is situated on transcendental plane. This chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is directly enacted from the spiritual platform, surpassing all lower status of consciousness, namely sensual, mental and intellectual. There is no need of understanding the language of the mantra, nor there is any need of mental speculation, nor any intellectual adjustment for chanting this Maha Mantra. It springs automatically from the spiritual platform, and as such, anyone can take part in this transcendental sound vibration without any previous qualification and dance in ecstasy.
Yeah, so it's nice, right? So actually we are so lucky that Swami Prabhupada actually could come to Western countries and propagate all the Krishna consciousness, right? So at least we have all these Krishna temples here, and we have all these books in English we can read and nicely explain. And also nice to also hear the vibrations of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Like an important part he explained is you don't have to know anything about, we don't have to do any speculation or any language or anything about this. The mantra itself is the transcendental vibration, right? And also in Kali Yuga they say what the God is in the name itself, like so Lord Krishna. And that's why when we chant in the beginning, we are chanting along with Swami Prabhupada's voice. Actually, the chanting is in Swami Prabhupada's voice. So that's your nice. So cool, wonderful. Have a good time, and then we'll see you tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. Yeah.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.